Rich, there's a very important skill set that I think all leaders and entrepreneurs running companies, entrepreneurs running companies, I should say, need to master in order to get traction on their goals, to move forward with their businesses and make sure everybody's moving in the same, zone, in the same area, rowing the same boat in the same direction. And it's accountability. And I know you're working with a lot of your coachees on this concept of accountability. I think you're a master of accountability. Can you please share with us and the audience today, what are some keys to making sure you know how to hold people accountable, including yourself, on what you're setting forth to do?
I love this topic. I think a lot of people struggle with accountability because accountability got a bad rap from a very young age, where accountability became something that felt more like punishment than it did support. And just the idea of being held accountable, it doesn't sound fun. Sounds like anything other than fun. So what we want to do is we want to turn accountability into something that's a support mechanism rather than a punishment mechanism. And I think there are just two simple steps to do this. The first one is collect a commitment from someone. And you know you've got a commitment from someone when you have three things: who is going to do what by when. If you don't have who's going to do what by when, you don't have a commitment yet that has been collected. And then the second part is follow up on that commitment. That's it. Very simple. Now, there's a bunch of nuance under that, sure. And how do you do it? And how much can you influence the commitment before it becomes the entrepreneur's commitment or the coach's commitment and not really the person who you're trying to lead? And how do you follow up? And a bunch of nuance there, but it's just two things: collect the commitment, follow up on a commitment. Now, I could say to you, hey, John, I really need you to send me the ABC report by the end of the day on Friday. A lot of people just stop there and they assume that it's going to be sent. That's not collecting a commitment. Collecting a commitment would be saying, would you be able to send that to me by the end of the day Friday? As soon as you say yes, boom, now you've made a commitment that I can follow up on. Sure, I influenced that commitment, but you said you would do something. So now, at the end of the day Friday, if we have common language of the end of the day is 5 p.m., or if we don't, I would need to collect that. So by when are you thinking on Friday? And you say, well, 5 p.m. Great. I need to find a way that it's going to automatically come into my environment to follow up on that commitment. Maybe it's setting an alarm on my phone. Maybe it's a notification on the computer. Maybe it's a delayed email to myself. Maybe it's an all-day appointment in my calendar, something to remind me that I don't actually have to remember. But I schedule something somewhere, somehow, to remind me that commitment was made. So if that commitment is not followed through on, let's say it's 5:10, or let's say it's Monday morning, the way to follow up on the commitment is very non-emotionally, and it's not adding a storyline to it. So very simply, the way to do that is, hey, John, I know when we talked on Thursday, you said you would send that to me by 5 o'clock on Friday, and I noticed you didn't. That's it. My turn to be quiet. Often when we hold someone accountable in that way, there's what just happened with us. There's like this pause that they're waiting to hear the storyline, because a lot of people add a storyline to it. I don't know if you were busy or what happened, or did you not care, or like, just point out the facts, not the feelings. Let somebody tell their own story. Hey, John, when we talked on Thursday, you said you were going to send the ABC report by 5 o'clock. I noticed you didn't. Now it's your turn to talk. So often, and what some of my clients will say is, what happens when they then give you a bunch of excuses? Oh, I had this come up. I had that come up. Got it. Sounds like you had a lot going on. Can you send it to me by 5 o'clock today? So we're not going to bicker about was it valid reasoning to not follow through on it. I'm just going to collect another commitment. then I'm going to follow up on that commitment. And I find that when people know that their commitments will have follow up on the back end of it, they end up being more careful with their commitments, which is a good thing because they should know when they say they'll do something that, yeah, they're expected to follow through. John, if we had a room of 1,000 people and we got on stage and we said, raise your hand if you want to be the type of person when you make a commitment, everybody knows when you make a commitment, you might follow through depending on what else happens. Maybe. Nobody would raise their hand. Maybe the smart aleck in the back of the room, but nobody wants to be known that way. Everybody wants to be known as a person of their word. So when we point out to people, you said you were going to do this by this time, by this day, and I noticed you didn't. That's it. And people are drawn to want to follow through on their commitments because they know there's going to be some follow-up. There's no emotion to it. There's no I'm mad. There's no that's disrespectful. There's no nothing to that. And when there's a pattern of it, hey, John, I noticed the last 3 times you said you would send me something, you actually didn't send it on time. That's okay to mention. And then in a manner of having our arm around that person to check in with them and say, hey, what's going on? That you seem to be committing to things and struggling to follow through. What's up, man? That's done in a manner that you have your arm around them and you're supporting them. In your mind, as a coach, as an entrepreneur, there's a little bit of, that really sucks for you. That you say you're going to do things and then you struggle to manage your own time to follow through on. That sucks. Like, why would that be happening? What's the roadblock that's there? How can I help you with that? There is no taking it personally. There's no being upset involved. The assumption is actually they wanted to follow through. And you don't know why they're not. You literally don't know why they're not, and they may not either. But the last thing they need is to feel shame and blame about it. What they need is for somebody to put their arm around them and help them acknowledge, hey, you're not doing what you said you would do that often anymore. And I wanted to check in with you. Like, what's changed? Literally in that tone of voice that's supportive, not punitive, not punishment, not shame and blame inducing, but support inducing.
Rich, I love the framework. And I think what you're highlighting is that we all want accountability. Leaders want their people to be accountable, to do what they say they're going to do. The amount of times, hundreds, thousands of times that I've heard from somebody, so-and-so on my team doesn't get done what they say they're going to get done. They're not accountable or they're not whatever. And then you dive into it and it's like, they didn't specify who, what, by when. They didn't get a commitment. They just expected the other person to know that it was Friday at 5 o'clock and not 2 Fridays from now at 3 o'clock. So many times it's the person seeking the commitment that doesn't do their role correctly, but they blame the other person for not being accountable. So I love the way you're highlighting it's your job if you want people to be accountable to you on something. I think the other thing too, Rich, that has been very successful for me is, hey, Rich, I really need this report. When do you think you can get it to me by? I'd love to have it Friday at 5, but what do you think? I got this thing going on. How about Monday at 5, not Friday at 5? Okay. Are you sure you can get it to me by Monday at Friday? Because I really need it on Friday. So like Monday's got to be like the latest. Are you sure you can get? Yes, John, I'll get it to you Monday at 5. Perfect. I'll give you that extra day. No problem. When you allow them to set the timeline, so long as it works within what you need or what the product specifically is going to be, that's a whole other can of worms. Like not only what, but like specifically what you're looking for, they have even more accountability to the delivery point. Secondly, I love what you're saying is just that non-emotional, factual, shut up. I noticed that I didn't get the report by Monday at 5, Rich. Anything going on? But I
You
think
don't even ask anything going on.
no, I
You
know,
did
but I was waiting for you to respond. You weren't
right,
answering. So
right, right,
anyway,
right.
but my point is you shut up, right? It's,
Yeah.
"Hey, I noticed I didn't get that report," or and then I think when you see a pattern, I think a pattern for me, Rich, is 3. If I see a pattern of 3 times where you just blew smoke to get me off your back and then get me something that I said, that's usually when I would come in with, "Hey, is anything going on?" And the one thing from accountability that's still true to this day is this chart of commitment versus competency. It's always been true for me. And just to verb it for people that are listening, if somebody doesn't do what they say they're going to do within the time frame they've committed to, it's either they really weren't committed to it or they don't know how to do it. Because everything's a prioritization, right? So did they prioritize it? Were they committed to the prioritization of what they said they were going to do? Or are they maybe uncertain on exactly what was expected, so they didn't get it done? And a lot of times that goes back to the initial framing from the person setting the commitment or trying to hold someone accountable to ensure the person knows what's expected. Because a lot of times, Rich, what I see is, hey, can you get me the drawings of the new home we're going to build by Monday at 5? And the person doesn't even know how to do a drawing, but they say yes to it because they want to please. They want to try and please the leader. So they take on the task, but they don't even know how to do the job that's being asked. And it's the onus is on the leader to make sure, hey, Rich, do you need any resources to make sure you know exactly how to do that by Monday at 5 and not just take on the assignment? And I think way too many times the leader assumes the person knows exactly what needs to be done. And then they're disappointed when they get the product. They're like, that's not what I wanted. Maybe you didn't give the person the competency or the skills or the resources to actually get what you needed done. So I think this commitment versus competency chart, a lot of times when goals are not achieved by a certain timeline, it's because they either weren't that committed to it or they didn't really have the competency. And that's on you a little bit as the leader to make sure they have what they need to get it done.
I'll tell you that 2 mistakes, and you highlighted one of them, but the 2 big mistakes that people make with holding accountability is the first one is there was no commitment that was actually made. So if there's no commitment that was made, there's no accountability. What are you holding somebody accountable? Something they didn't say they would do? So, in order to hold accountability, it must be preceded by them making a commitment. Who's going to do what by when? If you don't have all 3 components, who's going to do what by when? You don't have a commitment. There's no accountability to be held. So, you're exactly right that a lot of people, when they start learning this method of holding accountability, what the first thing is that they notice, oh, I'm not actually collecting commitments. I'm setting what I think are expectations, but I'm not actually collecting their commitment to actually do it. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the assumption that when you're collecting a commitment, it's a commitment to you. It's not. It's not a commitment to you. You're collecting commitments, and the perspective is they're committing to themselves that they'll follow through. They're not committing to you. They're committing to themselves. So when you say you'll do something by 5 o'clock tomorrow, that's a commitment to yourself that you will follow through on being a person of your word. So knowing that's what helps in the follow up when people miss on commitments and the holding of accountability when people miss on commitments, where it's nothing personal. You didn't make the commitment to me. You're the one that isn't able to follow through on the commitments that you're making to yourself that you can manage your time to follow through on things.
But that's why, Rich, I think I really enjoy when I'm working with somebody, allowing them to set the time when they can get the project done, as opposed to me saying, hey, Rich, I need this by Friday at 5. I would say, hey, I need this report. I'd like to have it at Friday at 5. When do you think you can get it done? Because when they set the time of the commitment, it's more on them. Versus if
Yes,
I'm
and
imposing on them the time, then I feel like I've made the commitment for them and they want to please me. So they're just going to say yes.
just to clarify, yes, and the commitment can be influenced by you. You could say, hey, I'd really like to get this by 5 o'clock. You can say, I need this by 5 o'clock. You can do that at the point where they say, I will do that. Now it's their commitment to follow through. So if there's a pattern of people not following through because they're not as bought in, because they said that they would do it just because that's what you wanted, and you're coming back and holding them accountable, you're going to work that out over a period of 2 or 3 commitments being missed. That when they say yes, that it means it's theirs to do. It's only going to take you 2 or 3 misses to work that out. It's okay to influence that commitment, but at the end of it, they have to say, yes, I'll do that. There's another side of accountability that I think we talk about way too little. And I'm going to pull a page out of a former podcast guest of ours, Michael Alasso. He would say we need to use TSP, truthful, specific, positive, when we work with people. And that's how we praise people. That's part of accountability, is actually praising people with truthful, specific, and positive words. And often we find that people are truthful and positive, and it's, hey, John, you're a good guy. Hey, I love working with you. Versus being specific. Hey, John, when we talked on Thursday, you said you would get me stuff by 5 o'clock, and I saw it come in at 4:30. I really appreciate you delivering on time in the way that you said you would. Boom, done. How long did that take me? 10 seconds? Maybe 12. But when people get TSP, they want to do that behavior that gave them the TSP, because not a lot of people give truthful, specific, positive words. So we want to make sure we're handling both sides of accountability. Yes, when people miss, holding them accountable by using facts, not feelings, pointing out what the miss is, not giving them a story about why you think they just, hey, you said you were going to get it to me by 5 o'clock. I noticed you didn't. And be
Yeah.
quiet. And then the other side, TSP, when they do, you add those two, those are like superpowers to have people actually follow through on what they committed to.
It reminds me of that old book, The 1 Minute Manager.
Yeah.
1 minute praise, 1 minute reprimand. And we don't do 1 minute praises enough. Period. End of story. Full stop. We just expect that people should just do what they say they're going to do. And we don't understand the power of that TSP and the power of people wanting that dopamine hit of that TSP from the leader that they work for. I know I'm certainly one that could give out a little more teaspoons of sugar and TSP, but I appreciate you bringing that up. And I think the other thing, Rich, in closing to this conversation is, look, back to your 1,000 people in the room. And you asked, raise your hand if you have integrity. And they'd all raise their hands. And most people define integrity as they don't lie, cheat, or steal, and they do what they say they're going to do, right? But yet there's so many misses in the business world of people on both sides feeling there was a miss. The person that's expecting something that feels that this person's not accountable. The person that's doing something feels like they weren't giving a very clear direction on what to do. There's like this communication gap. And I really feel it's not because the people are genuinely trying to lack integrity or not do what they say they're going to do. And I think we need to be more introspective as leaders and take accountability ourselves. When you work with people and people don't get stuff done in the time frame and the expectation you had, you may want to pull a big mirror up and go, what am I contributing to this? And maybe re-listen to this podcast, Rich, where you're really giving this formula of success over and over again until your team starts delivering the way you expect, because a lot of times it starts with the person in the mirror.
Yeah. Thanks for the topic and the conversation all around accountability. So important, and looking forward to bringing you more important messages like these.